The Café Terrace and Its Goddesses is an adaptation of a manga written by Koji Seo and is animated by Tezuka Productions, the studio that worked on My Home Hero and the Quintessential Quintuplets. This harem rom-com series follows the daily life of a college student named Hayato Kusakabe and the 5 women he lives with as they work together to revitalize his recently deceased grandmother's cafe. When Hayato returns home after 3 years, he's shocked to find several girls living there. Pissed off by their initial encounter, he demands that they leave despite his grandma giving them permission to stay there prior to her passing. He originally planned to have the residence and cafe demolished in favor of a parking lot, but has a sudden change of heart when one of the developers accidentally breaks the shop's sign. Hayato decides to let the girls stay with him and take the year off of college to see if he can make the cafe profitable. Now these girls must help him make the business a success or else he'll go through with his initial plan. The Café Terrace and Its Goddesses is among the best new rom-com series to premiere so far this year. This show is reminiscent of another harem series called Love Flops, in which the main character Asahi lives together with his classmates who already know about him prior to their meeting. Just like that show, this anime dedicates some time to focusing on each of Hayato's part-time employees slash potential love interests. While I eventually found most of the cast enjoyable, the female leads are quite unlikable at first. They really came off as entitled freeloaders that made life difficult for Hayato. The oldest woman, Ryo Tsukishima, and the pink-haired tsundere Oka Makuzawa were very disrespectful at the start. Although Oka does get better after a few episodes, I say she's the worst out of the group by far. Her nasty attitude toward Hayato got on my nerves. I also disliked how she was always being difficult with him and getting on his case about stuff. There's only one character I hated more than her, but I can't say who it is because it's a spoiler. If you've seen this anime already, then you probably know who I'm talking about. This particular character was way ruder than Oka or anyone else was in the beginning. The episode where this person is introduced was the only time I was in Oka's corner. Anyway, in addition to the discourteous behavior of a few girls toward the protagonist early on, the moments of physical comedy at his expense came off as annoying rather than funny. There were a handful of scenes where the youngest and most immature girl in the group, Ami Saruga, hits Hayato when he wasn't the one at fault during a situation. For example, there are a couple scenes where he's just chilling in the bath and then one of them walks in on him. I know this is a typical gag that's been done in other series before, but it's really irritating in this case. The only one who always treated him with some respect was the modest, timid girl Shiragiku Ono. Shiragiku, often referred to as Kiku, wasn't nearly as bad as the rest of her friends unless she got drunk. As for Hayato, I can see why some people might find the character a little off-putting at the start of the series. He comes off as cold-hearted and money-grubbing through a good chunk of the premiere. Hayato's love for his grandmother and the regret for how he left things ultimately shines through and erases any notion you'll have of him being an uncaring grandson. That said, he tends to be critical of others, brutally honest, and is pretty perceptive. I can see why some viewers might dislike his personality, especially at the start, but I found this character refreshing as a male lead in this genre. Throughout the series, there are multiple flashbacks with his grandmother and the rest of the main cast. She serves as a central figure to which they all had a strong connection to. Fortunately, the majority of the main cast gets more endearing as the series progresses. I really started to like Ami more starting from the 4th episode. She's just a lovable idiot and a big, energetic child. Her playfulness complements the lighthearted, cringy side of Hayato that surfaces occasionally during certain scenes. Ami serves as a great comedy relief character that is involved in some of the show's funniest moments. The physical humor featuring Ami improves considerably after the first few episodes. There were a couple scenes with her and Hayato that were very funny. The way that Seo leads into one of these humorous situations with Ami's cryptic dialogue beforehand was very good. Generally speaking, he does an excellent job with the many visual gags and running jokes too. The author also includes a handful of fun references to a legendary fighting game franchise with Ami that I won't spoil. Perhaps the most hilarious scene in the entire show involves her and 3 other girls playing around at the beach. The timing for the joke was perfect and the reactions were pure gold, especially Kiku's dialogue. Throughout the series, there are many short segments used to get a quick laugh from the viewers by following up on something that happened in the episode or revisiting a past joke. This party anime is mostly static and is presented like a vertical scrolling comic. A lot of these were quite amusing. Comedy aside, this series has some solid emotional and dramatic scenes, the bulk of which focus on either Riho or her fellow co-worker Akane Hooji. There is much more attention put on these characters and their family issues compared to the other girls. While they're both reasonably fleshed out, Akane is the only one that actually experiences a significant change throughout the season. The other female leads have been much more static in respect to character growth, but aren't completely flat by any means. Regardless, in terms of her personality, Akane stands out from her friends as she's way more cool-headed and slightly more aloof. While not as rude as Oka or Riho, she was still another nuisance to Hayato at first. A totally different side of her is shown off around Hayato in the 5th episode, which showcased her talent as a musician. Akane soon becomes more approachable and open with everyone, especially Hayato later on as she starts to like him. While Seo clearly establishes certain girls as prime romantic candidates for the protagonist, there are moments with each of them where they suddenly feel charmed or enamored by him based on his actions. Even Oka stops badmouthing him and has some kind words to say about the guy at some point. Although these scenes are well written, the way that Tezuka Productions presents them is uninspired and lacking in style. Their execution of these moments aren't nearly on par with the other romance series that aired last season like Yamada-kun, Dangers in My Heart, or Raeliana. Anyway, Akane is a fairly solid character whose initial lack of candidness and determination are a nice subtle contrast to the sharp-tongued Hayato's resolve to make the cafe a success. That said, Riho was a lot more interesting and appealing due to the complexity of her issues and her outgoing personality. She's an extremely hard worker that can be stubborn and a little devious at times. Just like Hayato, Riho's main goal is to help the shop prosper and puts a ton of effort into bringing more traffic to the cafe. The show focuses a lot of time on Riho and her tendency to overwork herself. Conversely, Kiku doesn't get nearly as much attention as the rest of the cast until the final episode. This character is often used in comedic scenes whenever she's drunk and starts behaving in a lustful manner, exposing herself to Hayato. There's a ton of fan service in this anime that might be a turnoff for people with a low tolerance for this sort of thing. But for those that enjoy this kind of stuff, you're in for a treat. There are plenty of panty shots and scenes with the girls either in their undergarments or completely nude. Of course, the nudity is censored and things never get too wild, but I definitely put this in the horny but wholesome category of rom-coms out there. Production-wise, this show is pretty average in that aspect. The backgrounds, artwork, and animation all look good, but nothing really stood out apart from the characters' eyes during certain close-ups. The direction is fine, but the studio doesn't do much with the overall presentation. The most they do is briefly make the characters a little transparent and add some cinematic black bars on the top and bottom of the screen during a scene where Hayato and Riho are walking home together at night. That's not super impressive or anything, but Tezuka Productions should have done more stuff like that to make this show a bit more eye-catching. All in all, the Café Terrace and its Goddesses is an entertaining harem anime with a memorable cast of characters and great comedic scenes. Its family-themed story isn't amazing by any means, but the writing is generally good all around. If you don't mind romance shows with a lot of fan service in it, then I'd highly recommend checking this out. Anyway, if you've seen this series, let me know what you think about it in the comment section below, and as always, thanks for watching.